Welcome to an Uncredible show. Oh my god, got a huge show today. Oh, but it's going to be awesome. I got some charts. Oh, everybody loves charts. Well, ironically, since this story is about the education system, and I know, anybody who's in school or who was in school remembers just how awesome those charts were, right? Well, maybe when you get a little older, the charts do become a little bit more interesting, and I'm going to try to prove that today. All right. So I did a story a couple days ago about Governor Phil Bryant of Mississippi, a guy who said that the reason the U.S. has fallen behind in education, which, by the way, by falling behind, the statistics are we are 17 out of the top 50 in industrialized countries, is because, quote, mom got into the workplace, right? Now, I'm not going to go over all the different ways that comment is both ignorant and stupid, but it does tie into the story today on Salon. Yeah, I get a lot of stories from Salon. What am I going to do? I'm a progressive, right? And they cover politics with facts, charts, and science. And those are the things that progressives believe should be the basis for how we create policy. So, yeah, fuck you. I'm gonna get articles from Salon. So this particular one warns about one of the key words that the Republicans and the Democrats alike use when they're doing the bidding of their corporate masters, which is reform. Whether it's you'd be familiar with the terms entitlement reform and tax reform, basically just reform is another word for cutting, right? So this article, in this context, is talking about educational reform, specifically the people who are trying to tout themselves as educational reformers. So to use David Sirota's term, the fairy tale these so-called reformers generally pitch is that it's the teacher's fault. The teachers suck. More specifically, it's the teachers' unions' fault, right? The unions are terrible. Unions are full of lazy people who don't want to work, don't know what they're doing, and they have lax, regulations within them, do anything to protect them. Yeah, there's a little bit of truth in there, I suppose. But anyway, this is the propaganda that they feed you about unions. So he says, quote, they argue, being the reformers, that education can be improved if taxpayer money is funneled away from the public school system's priorities, which are things like hiring teachers, training teachers, reducing class size, etc., and into the private sector, which is replacing teachers with computers, replacing public schools with privately run charter schools, to name a couple of examples. Now, what do those things have in common? Well, he explains, quote, the reform argument gives them a way to both talk about fixing education, which is, a soapbox that they like to stand on, every politician in the country, and to bash organized labor, all without having to mention an economic status quo that moneyed interests benefit from and thus do not want changed. Okay, so now, who's he talking about when he says them? Well, I've already mentioned it's the reformers. Well, more specifically, it's the conservatives and their donors, generally speaking. And by the way, conservative doesn't necessarily mean just Republicans in this sense. It also applies to the Democrats that are bought by the same companies that benefit from privatization and union busting and whatnot. But this is the most important point. The only reason public education is failing in the first place is because of these horrific austerity measures that have been implemented in the first place, right? So you cut the school's budgets, the classes get overcrowded, the teachers are more stressed out, there's more of a focus on performing because that's how the federal money is divvied out, so there's a focus on standardized testing. And, they lose equipment, they lose, art classes, the things that promote creativity and whatnot. And then the people who cut the budgets point to the subsequent underperforming, and they say, you see that? The system doesn't work. The unions suck. The public schools suck. Well, yeah, now that you fucking gutted it, you pricks. I'm getting a little worked up. I apologize. You go. You are pricks. I don't take it back, and I don't apologize. I do not reject myself or denounce myself. So, what's the evidence for this, right? Yeah, it's an easy thing to say. But that's the great thing about Salon. They have evidence. So, Sirota points out about 1 in 5 public schools was considered high poverty in 2011. 1 in 5. Jesus! I'm not good at math because I went through our public school system, but I believe that's 20% in poverty. Up from about 1 in 8 in 2000. Well, no fucking wonder. It's those damn kids. Millennials. They're lazy, stupid, irresponsible. And the goddamn teachers' unions protecting shitty teachers that can't teach worth a damn. Well, I mean, we slashed their budgets and everything, and they still can't perform. In fact, they're getting even worse. Well, you libs say that's the reason, right? No, we're trying to help you. That the money is the problem. We have to cut their budgets even more and privatize. Yeah, it's I don't know what the expression is for that. It's not the cart before the horse type of thing, but yeah, you cut the budgets, they get fucking worse, and then you blame them for their failings. Now, I'm sure this is what Rahm Emanuel is thinking as well. I remember I mentioned that it's not necessarily Republicans. Rahm Emanuel is a Democrat. He is, what is it, the mayor of Chicago now, I think? Yeah, I think that's what it is. He just did the biggest school closing in U.S. history in Chicago and turned right around and put $100 million into a private stadium. Yeah, that stadium's really going to help these kids' education. And then they turn around and blame the education system. You fucking assholes. All right, so the education system reform propaganda never even mentions the obvious correlation between poverty and poor performance, which, because of some studies that have come out that show this correlation, is incredibly transparent, Sirota also points out. So, in other words, in the past, the propaganda used to, it used to be an ideological thing. Like they would say, oh, well, the unions, people don't have to worry about getting fired, so they don't perform as well. And, that sounds like a halfway decent argument, I suppose. But with these facts that have come out about the correlation between poverty and poor education or poor performance, that argument has become, not so convincing, but rather has become transparent. So what studies is he talking about? Well, there are a couple of them. In fact, I think there are 3 of them, if I'm remembering from when I did my research. The first one is, and I'm quoting from the article now, quote, Stanford University's Sean Reardon released a comprehensive study documenting the new, quote, income achievement gap. The report proved that family income is now by far the biggest determining and predictive factor in a student's educational achievement. And he goes on to, so, I mean, that's pretty clear, right? Biggest determining predictive factor, okay? The poverty, right? So a few months, or I should say family income, more specifically, the lower the income, the worse they perform. A few months later, and this is another study that he's talking about, and this is going to be a longer quote, so buckle in or, turn off this show, you few ghosts who are actually still watching for some reason, if you don't want to hear the truth. A few months later, Joanne Barkin published a groundbreaking magazine report surveying decades worth of social science research. Her conclusion, again, came back to the non-school factors like family economics and poverty. Quote, and this is verbatim from her what she found in her research paper that she published. Out-of-school factors, family characteristics such as income and parents' education, neighborhood environment, healthcare, housing stability, and so on, count for twice as much as all in-school factors, right? So all of that shit out of school accounts for twice as much as the in-school factors for determining performance. She goes on, in 1966, a groundbreaking environment study, the Coleman Report, which I know I've heard about before, got lost here. First identified a, quote, 1/3 in-school factors, 2/3 family characteristics ratio to explain variations in student achievement, right? So that's pretty clear. That would be 66% are determined by. So that's even more than a half, right? Determine school performance, and it's family characteristics 2/3. So she goes on to say, and this is the last part of the quote. I hope you're still with me. Since then, researchers have endlessly tried to refine or refute the findings. Education scholar Richard Rothstein described the results. Quote, no analyst has been able to attribute less than 2/3 of the variation in achievement among schools to the family characteristics of their students. So, they try and they try, like the, archaeologists trying to prove the Bible, and they come up short. And this is how it ties in not just to school funding, but to the overall problem in this country, right? Sometimes I get frustrated. I get frustrated a lot. But sometimes I get frustrated when I see the media talking about one issue or another and never acknowledging the obvious fact that nearly every single major problem that we have in politics stems from the influence of money controlled by a few people at the expense of the middle class, right? So, income inequality, right? Okay, what's the evidence? Well, I got some fucking evidence for you. Charts, bitch, I told you. Here they come. So as you can see here, starting in the middle of the last century, around 1950 or so, the economy was doing great, right? More people were coming into the workforce, more technology was being implemented, productivity was on the rise, and as you can see, the median family income was perfectly in sync with the productivity, and it was on the rise as well. And this is mostly having to do with or because of the liberal policies of FDR implemented to get us out of the Great Depression, which worked incredibly well. But then look at this shit here. Around 1980, the productivity keeps going way up. In fact, it even starts going up. Well, not at a greater pace, but it keeps rising with the same trend that it had in the past, right? So the awesome American workers keep busting their fucking asses, producing higher and higher levels of productivity. Producing productivity. I know that's redundant, but fuck me, the income stagnates. What the hell happened? Well, let's look a little bit closer. All right, bang. Here's a new chart. Remember how I said that at one point, or remember how I said that one of the main things the education reformers are trying to do was undermine the credibility of the teachers' unions by blaming the teachers and completely ignoring the correlation between poverty and poor performing public schools? Check this shit out. As you can see here, the union membership was the highest. When the union membership was the highest, the percent of wage and salary workers was at the highest as well. That's curious. Look at that. 1980 again. Look at how both of those categories take a fucking nosedive at 1980. Well, if you look at the last graph, that's what we call a correlation. It's another correlation. Who was it that said that I don't believe in coincidences? It was some atheist dude. So I know what you're thinking. Jay, conservative ideology has taught us that if you work hard and you keep your nose to the grindstone, it'll all pay dividends. Everybody knows unions are lazy and they just sit back and reap the benefits while sitting on their fat asses. And by the way, they're thugs. Union thugs, obviously. If the productivity is going up and the wages are stagnating, that's simply because the fucking unions are, they're just really inefficient. And the high wages that they got paid, they couldn't stay that way forever. That's socialism, right? To which I say, shut the fuck up. That's always my best argument. Shut the fuck up. But in this case, I have another argument. Look at this chart. Oh, that's interesting. So, productivity did seem to result in financial gains. Curiously, it just seemed to have miraculously made its way out of our pockets and into someone else's. Okay, I'm going to blow your fucking mind with a syllogism. If you look at these three charts, right, the amount we work keeps going up. Despite what, people, if you recall Mitt Romney painted a picture where, half of the country is just sitting on its ass, not working. But you can see the productivity keeps going up. The amount we work keeps going up. The wealth we produce keeps going up. You can see that, because it's in the CEO's pockets now. And it would appear that the unions are the linchpin that holds wages to wealth, right? It's in the charts. Interesting. So considering that we found that lack of educational performance is strongly correlated to poverty, and this is a syllogism, and higher wages are strongly correlated to unions, and unions do not equal a reduction in productivity, workers are not lazy, in other words, maybe the fucking teachers' unions are not the goddamn problem. Don't believe them, man. Don't believe them. They're lying to you when they tell you it's anything but the money. And the reformers are trying to rob you even more, right? They're the people who are lying to you. These reformers, whether it's tax reform, entitlement reform, education reform. Okay, here's a few more fun facts for you. Boom, another chart. Huh. What does the conservatives say every single time you ask them about their plan for the economy? Every single motherfucking time. Well, I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, living in a cave, if you've ever heard a Republican say anything about the economy, it's that we should lower taxes. It used to be trickle-down economics. Now it's trickle-down economics. It sounds disgusting, right? It sounds like the sweat from their ass crack is running down their leg, and you just have to lick it off the inside of their thigh. They don't use the term trickle-down economics anymore. Now they use job creators. They're job creators. You got to pay them all that cash up front. And they don't hoard it. They don't spend it on yachts. They give us more jobs. You might think that our unemployment rate is at an all-time high, so maybe not to mention that the fucking Bush tax cuts resulted in I should say at the very least you can see that right there they correlate to a huge recession. You can try to deny that. If you do, you're crazy. But, how are these tax cuts working for us? Check us out. It's that fucking 1980 year again, right? Right in the middle of that chart, boom, 1980. Drops off. And you can see in the 90s, it goes up. You can thank Bill Clinton for that. He raised the taxes there. But then you can see the taxes start to take a nosedive again after that. For the highest income taxpayers. That's curious. If I'm remembering from a couple minutes ago, isn't that where wages stopped going up even though production kept rising faster and faster in 1980? Coincidence. Boom, here's another chart. God damn it. 1980 strikes again. So clearly the wealth kept coming in, but we went back to giving it all to the rich, just like we did in the 1920s. And we fucked ourselves into the Great Depression. Income equality, dog. We've learned this lesson before. I just had a thought. Ironically, if we had a better education, maybe we could actually remember this lesson from history about inequality. But, of course, since we have the inequality, it keeps us from getting the education. Oh, that stings. Bitter irony. Don't believe him, man. The reformers are trying to fuck you. They're trying to fuck all of us. Conservatives are trying to fuck you. Conservative, Democrats, Republicans are trying to fuck you. And you can see from the charts here, they're actually getting away with it. So what happened in 1980, where all this bullshit starts to happen? That seems to be that key point in history where everything seemed to go south. There are some downward trends before that, but 1980 was sort of the key point. That's where the income inequality tried to spike. That's where our wages stagnated. That's where the taxes started going down for the rich. That's where the growth of CEO pay in America went sky high. That's the union saw a huge nosedive at that point too. So what is it? What is this 1980 thing? Well, and I learned this from apparently. I was watching a video with the host of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, and he was talking to Ralph Nader, and he explained it. And since then, I've looked it up, and Bill Moyers has a great article on Moyers and Company on what's called the Powell Memo. Right? This explains why all this shit happened, and I'm gonna give a little summary here. So. There's this guy named Lewis Powell who was chair of the Education Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. Now, I'm assuming that's a federal thing. He did end up getting appointed to the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon once Nixon saw what he was about, and Nixon thought it was a great idea. He wrote this memo that was essentially a call to arms for the private sector businesses, right? And here's a representative sample, so sort of the core of his ideology, which appeared in this memo. Quote, "The American economic system is under broad attack. This attack," Powell maintained, and now this is the article, it's not Powell, still quoting. This attack, no, it is Powell. This attack, Powell maintained, required mobilization for the political combat. Business must learn the lesson that political power is necessary, that such power must be assiduously cultivated, and that when necessary, it must be used aggressively and with determination, without embarrassment and without the reluctance which has been so characteristic of American business. So this was the response. This was in response to liberalism. That up until that point had essentially ruled the day, right? Since the 1920s, FDR, there's the New Deal, obviously, the Great Society, unions, and those things were great. I mean, there's never been a better time for the American worker than that's essentially the golden age of the economy in this country, and it was. And it was liberalism that ruled the day. So Moyers and Company, as I said, they have this, they have an awesome article about that. I'm going to include the link. And they explain in that article exactly how the memo influenced the corporate sector to mobilize on a mass scale, right? So businesses were sort of, disorganized before that point, and this guy, Lewis Powell, was incredibly influential in sort of getting them to organize. Which part of their organization was the decision to start buying our Congress and the executive branch, fight regulations, and to form alliances in Washington. One of the quotes from the article, it said something like, "If you don't know your senator's name, then you're not doing your job as for the shareholders." Right? It's a war. This thing's a fucking war, man. Liberals versus liberalism, I should say, versus conservatism. If you don't understand it's a war, that it's, the corporations and the people they bribe in Congress versus us being the people, them being, Washington, the corporations, then you haven't been following along. And, it's not your fault. Sirota points out in the Salon article, in fact, that the media almost never even considers the problem of poverty as it correlates to education. Instead, praising these reformers, and he mentions the Rahm Emanuel and Mayor Bloomberg, probably two of the most famous so-called education reformers, And keep in mind, if I haven't been clear, reform means cut, or undermine, or usurp, right? They're the ones who constantly blame the school system and blame the unions. Did I mention how Rahm Emanuel did the biggest public school cut in history? Right. Now, why did I go into income equality when this is a story about education? Well, it's all connected. They're coming for our money, and as you can see, they have been since 1980, and even before that. Although 1980, as with the Powell memo, that was the sort of the point where they got organized and started fucking us. They couldn't compete with liberalism before then. They're coming for us, and they're coming for the kids. And shitting all over the education system is just, the next part of that. Sometimes I get depressed when I think about this stuff. But as we know, depression accomplishes nothing. So let me end with a bit of advocacy here. I've mentioned it before. It's called Wolfpack. It's perhaps the only way to fix the most important problem, the source of all our problems, which is money in politics. Wolfpack is a super PAC with a singular goal, which is getting money out of politics. It was founded by the host of the Young Turks, who I've mentioned, and from whom I will steal much of this next little, advocacy speech. So this is the plan, right? This is how we do it. I mean, getting money out of politics, it seems like an insurmountable goal. I agree. Until, you sort of see the plan. And I think that you came up with an awesome plan. The founding fathers wrote this thing called the Constitution. If, you watched 3 minutes of politics, you've probably heard about the Constitution. Although you may not have learned about it in school. So they were brilliant. The Constitution is awesome. And they knew that occasionally the federal government would get so corrupt that the states would need to come together on their own to amend the Constitution, right? To fix the problems that arise. I mean, the longer people are in power, the more corrupt they get. That's just the nature of, humans. And that's why the Constitution is so brilliant. They knew that Congress was going to get corrupt every so often. And so they included this thing in Article 5 of the Constitution. And the way that Jank describes it is as sort of a break glass in case of emergency type thing, right? So the way it works is that the states are allowed to call for a constitutional convention to propose amendments to the Constitution. Now, if 2/3 of the states call for the convention, then we have the convention. And so, right, so there's the federal government, which is all these corrupt politicians. And I guess what Wolfpack has found in the I guess it's either 1.5 or 2.5 years of operation at this point, that the state legislatures and the state senates, these people aren't as corrupt as the federal government, the Congress, and the House of Representatives and the Senate. Those guys are hopeless. They're never gonna pass. They can make their own amendment. They can pass a new constitutional amendment if they want to. And it still goes to the states for ratification, et cetera. They can't just pass it on their own. But they're never going to even propose it because they're all bought by these corporations. So what we do is we go to the states, or the states directly. We get 2/3 of them to call for the convention. We get the convention. Then we propose the amendment, right? Then it goes to the states for ratification. So, if 3/4 of the states ratify it, then the amendment passes, and we didn't have to fuck around with those assholes in the federal government, right? So the proposed amendment from Wolfpack would include 2 provisions. One, corporations would be prohibited from providing funding to political campaigns in any way, and I believe unions as well, because as good as unions are for the workers, you don't want them to be able to influence elections directly either. And 2, all elections would be publicly financed, right? So that puts everybody on an even playing field. Damn, that would be awesome. Can you imagine? All of these people just being, bought left and right. Did you know that 95% of the people who win elections are the people who have more money? Gee, I wonder I wonder who influences the elections. There's some other statistic too. I think it's something like 160 some people in this country donated 60% of all of the money that funded all of the elections in 2012. That's a little bit disproportionate. Oh man, if you could just strip them of that ability, ah, uh, 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 oh, there's a ton more. Without getting into it, because I've gone on long enough, you guys should just visit the Wolfpack site. Here's the other thing: Democrats agree, Republicans agree, Independents agree. Upwards of 80% or more of people all agree that no matter what political identity you ascribe to, that the influence of money in politics needs to be ousted, right? And that's a beautiful thing. Like, you never get that many people to agree on any one issue. Well, you do, but whether it's gun control or that global warming is, if you're scientists, it's above 90% that it's caused by man. There are certain things that everybody agrees on, and Congress won't do it. But this is one of those very few issues where it doesn't matter what a party affiliation you have, or if you have no party affiliation. Everybody agrees. You can't even have a discussion about ideology because money corrupts the whole thing. It doesn't matter what your ideology is. The only thing that matters is the money. And it's not a fucking democracy, right? And, going back to the point of this article David Sirota wrote, it's not the education system. This is another thing that they're lying to you about. As Cenk would say, it's the money, Lebowski. All right, well, I got through that. I still got a lot of editing to do. 32 minutes, that's about right for, the length of these episodes. Check out Wolfpack. Do it. Don't let them lie to you. Reform means cutting. Use facts. Yeah. Peace.